when I'm off kilter, when I'm not sleeping, when I'm a mess, my nerves, when I'm afraid, all this, the inner asshole is way more susceptible to take over. So when I'm, let's say, not my best self, I'm not the best listener, right? Because I'm human. And so it becomes important to take care of myself, to be my best self,
Tell us about your book. You sold another book. That's huge. Most people don't even sell one book.
Yes. I sold my second book, and already, many months have passed. I went on a hiatus to write, and also I'm going through a divorce. So to write and have a nervous breakdown. And I'll tell you what, I didn't write, did have the breakdown, did get completely overwhelmed, haven't written, but the book's kind of writing itself. We sold it under the title of May You Remember, but that may change. But the subtitle is Let Go, Let Love, and Begin Again. So it's pretty phenomenal. It's writing itself in this moment of my life. I've left my marriage, and it's a wild, wild time. I'm notoriously someone, I was joking yesterday, in my book, has a lot of humor. I'm not a funny person. I wish I was, but but I pretend to be. And I said, on my tombstone, it would say, "She refused to change," until I did, and also I want to be cremated. But I will avoid change at all costs, and it's part of it's part of my childhood trauma. My dad dropped dead when I was 8. He was 38. Aaron and I's beloved, well, we don't have the same father, but you would have loved Mel. Because of that, I thought it was my fault. I've talked about it in my book, but I yelled, "I hate you." He was like, "You're being bad and making me not feel good." I said, "I hate you," and he died. So a couple things happened. One, I decided right then and there I was a bad person. And so the work of my life is remembering I'm not. And the other thing is I avoided change at all cost, because to me, change equals death. So for me, leaving my marriage is the biggest thing of my life, even bigger than my dad dying, because I don't really remember that anymore. It's more the memory of the memory. And this book is writing itself, and I'm very excited by it. And I want to share that when I was at NYU, I was a scholar, I was a poet, and I thought that's what I would do with my life. And I never grieved my father's death, and I essentially had a nervous breakdown, and I took a semester off before senior year. That lasted forever, and I became a career waitress in West Hollywood, same restaurant, for 14 years. And I stopped writing poems. I didn't think I got to. And about a year and a half ago, a little less, my publisher rejected my book. They get first offer on the book because they did book 1. And I fell into a deep depression. But what happened with that is I started writing poems again. Then I started leading these writing workshops called Allow. Yeah, called Allow. I'm a bad Jew. I got a tattoo that says Allow. And hundreds of people would come each time. And I was like, look at that. Huh. I didn't think I got to write poems. And so I decided, you know what? I'm gonna go back into this book, and I'm putting the poems in it. And my agent was not having it. She was like, it's not traditional. And I came very close, Aaron, to agreeing with her, to letting it go, to being like, yeah, but something in me, nope. And I let her go. I got a new agent. I sold it to the same publisher. They love the poems, and I'm so proud. I am so proud because I stayed true to myself, and I'm not traditional. So when she suggested that, I was like, yeah, hello, nothing about me is traditional. So I'm embracing that. And this book is not traditional. It's writing itself. It's humor. It's poetry. It's, exercises, practices for people to come back to themselves, to stop abandoning themselves, which is what I did for a really long time. And so I'm in it right now. I'm in the soup, as they say. But
love
I'm
it.
here. I'm breathing. I'm alive. Somehow I made it.
I mean,
this interview.
I think that's one of the things people love about you, right? And why you have cultivated such a amazing group of admirers of your work is that you're you are truly you, and that comes with all of the, you know, fallibility and the honesty and the vulnerability and the joy and the play and you know, the self-deprecation that I hear from you
You know
at
what's
times.
funny? What's funny about you saying that? So, as a child, and I have proof, I have photographs. As a child, even before my dad, I came out of the womb. First of all, like I came out of my mother's vagina at 40. I swear I was like 40, born 40. And I'm not kidding. I was very serious. I struggle with depression as far back as I can remember. Kindergarten, I would beg to not go. My dad was my best friend. I was very serious. And then my dad died, and forget it. It was like I was already depressed over the cliff, right? But every photograph of me, I look miserable. I if I had a dime, I would be a billionaire for the amount of people my whole life were like, you need to smile more. You're too serious, you know. And so as I've gotten older, this sort of reputation I have of being happy or silly, I don't even when I hear it, I'm like, they can't be talking about me, you know?
Mm,
And that excites me too, because it's a reminder that we're not one way, that yes, I was like that. I don't have to stay like that.
yeah,
And the other thing is my son, the love of my life, my son, who'll be 7 in May. Don't you have the same when's your birthday?
we do. May 19th.
Yes, my son's May 19th. So he is the most joyful, affectionate. I mean, the thing everyone says about him is he's the happiest. And sometimes I look at him and I am, it brings me to tears. I do not understand, but I feel, thank God, because I was such an unhappy child and I was not
Mm.
an affectionate person. And he is just like, look, he came in with it. I can't take credit, but anyway, so you mentioned that, like the joy and the play, and that's a very intentional choice, you know, because the bulk of my life was spent opposite.
I love that. I mean, I love that you are able to reflect on that. I think, I mean, I certainly relate. I always used to think I was stupid. I always thought I was like socially smart, but people would always say, oh, like you have such high, you know, EQ, but I was a terrible student and I was constantly having that reinforced for me. And so, you know, my work, I mean, I got a lot of it that I've been doing, but some of my work has been seeing myself different and saying, oh, it's okay that I can be different now. I can, you know, we evolve, we change, we grow. And we assign labels to ourselves very early in life that are incredibly hard to shed.
Yes.
And so I
But not
love,
impossible. And that's my, I'm
no,
here to say, not impossible to shed.
yeah. I mean, I,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to go, you know, why was I going to say the word ricochet, but off what you said about, you know, this high IQ and being so smart and for me, like still not feeling like I fit in. I've always felt very wise. I am wise and very not smart. Like my thing is I'm dumb. I'm not smart enough. I'm dumb, you know. But I'm clear and very wise, you know. And a lot of it is, first of all, I have ADHD, and I was so ashamed. I did not say that out loud till very recently. But also my deafness, and it got worse as I got older. But when I was younger, I didn't know that's what's going on, and so I missed a lot, right? So there's all these things and that happen when we're kids, or that didn't happen. Who knows why this was the way it was? But we make these decisions about ourselves, and then that's it. It's like we're a stuck piece of furniture, immovable, but we're
Mm.
not.
It's interesting to hear you say that. And in the same breath, you know, 5 minutes ago, you saying you avoid change at all costs. And so I wonder, you know, I wonder how those two things connect. And I also, you know, I know you've talked at length about your deafness, but and this is not to reduce your experience at all, but when you think about how that's impacted you, and you think about the fact that we really all have our own deafness, right? And it might not be the way that you have it, but we all have our thing.
Agreed.
That we.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering how that has both shaped positively and also how it's been difficult for you in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I'm clear on a lot of the things in my life that have been very hard and painful and how they become gifts. And that is not some kind of weird bypass to say, every hard thing turns into a gift. I think sometimes we can make art out of it or find beauty, and sometimes no. But I will say my deafness has been one of the greatest gifts ever. I had to teach myself to listen with my whole body. I had an experience. This is interesting. A couple weeks ago, I was in New York for the Scream 6 premiere. I told you.
Yeah.
And
thanks for
after, there was
calling.
a party, right? And it was it was like my nightmare. It was like loud thumping, and and I met this adorable when I was on the red carpet, I was kind of standing behind, and I met this adorable guy, and we started talking. His name's Sven. Hi, Sven. He was the composer of the movie. And thank God I met him, because I was so awkward, and we were talking. And so at the party, we saw each other. I was like, hey, buddy. And we're at the bar getting a drink. It's so loud, right? And I said, I don't know if I told you on the red carpet, I'm deaf. And we're talking, and he looks at me, and he asked me a very profound question. He goes, how come you're deaf and you could hear me better than I could hear you? And I thought about it, and I go, oh, well, because I'm used to this. Like, I know this is my life. I know how to, I can operate. I have practiced like every day of my life. No, there's not thumping bass, but like every day I have to work so hard. I've managed all these other ways, but it was a real epiphany, because I thought, oh my God, he's right. I know how to read lips. I know how to read and listen in a different way. And I also realized that party was I felt way more at ease than going out to dinner at a restaurant, which is very hard for me. I generally these days say no to group dinners because I feel like I want to die. I feel so stupid. Everyone's talking. I can't keep up. I feel lonely, exhausted. It's like, ugh. But that party, everybody was struggling. Nobody could hear. And so it was like, whatever, right? It was not, you're not meant to at that party.
So interesting.
My deafness right? My deafness has taught me, I lead these workshops when I get back to them. I have two in-person ones, one in May in Ojai, California, and September. And you can reach out for either to apply. But a lot of it is sharing, is connecting, is being human. And because I can't hear, I have to like scoot over, and usually on my butt, we're on the ground on yoga mats, and basically sit in the person's lap, I joke, but like get in their face to listen. And it's beautiful, and it's horrifying for some people because it's so scary, but ultimately it's amazing because they feel so heard. Having said that, if I wasn't deaf, I don't know if I would have had I don't know who else could do that. Like, I have to do that, but it like like a random hearing person is not going to get in your face in this awkward way. I have to if I want to hear. So it's taught me intimacy and how to listen in a different way with every part of my body, compassion, knowing I already had a lot, having lost my dad young, but knowing every single person is up against something. It's a spectrum. Like, my nephew just had surgery yesterday. My friend just lost their 2 children. I have deafness. Someone has depression. It's a spectrum, but everybody is dealing with something.
Well, I think especially in today's age, everybody is listening to talk. And there's a part of that that's just human nature, is as you're listening, you are taking in information and figuring out what that information means. But it's also made us shitty listeners. And I love that, because you have to be so intentional with the way you listen. it has not only literally
I
changed
love that word too. Taking
the way you listen, but it has changed the deep meaning of listening for you, which I think is so beautiful.
And let's be honest. Sometimes I'm a shitty listener. Sometimes I am. I'm human. So in this period of my life, this is something I'm writing about and I talk about a lot. I talk about the inner asshole. Or you could talk about fear or for me, like an eating disorder or someone who's an alcoholic, let's say, it's always right there on your shoulder. So when I'm off kilter, when I'm not sleeping, when I'm a mess, my nerves, when I'm afraid, all this, the inner asshole is way more susceptible to take over. So when I'm, let's say, not my best self, I'm not the best listener, right? Because I'm human. And so it becomes important to take care of myself, to be my best self, So what are the daily practices? What are the daily reminders that, yeah.
No, sorry. This fucking delay is terrible.
Go on.
No, you tell me.
No, it's okay. I know people are like, they're talking over each other.
No, it won't. People won't be able to.
Oh,
people won't hear the delay on the recording. It's going to be perfect.
The daily reminders are all sorts of things. I like to start, and I fell off for a while because I've really been in it. And when I say that, for some people, you're not going to know who I am, and this will be your first introduction. But if you do, and let's say you follow me on Instagram or something, you'll notice. So I fell off my daily prayer, but it's starting the day. One of them is this: if possible, sleep without your phone next to your head or in your room. Why? Because it becomes the first and the last thing you do. And for me, it's a rabbit hole. And also, right before bed, it's like then you're marinating on everything that you looked at. And then if it's the first thing you do, it's just like, wait a minute, let me decide who I want to be and how I want to feel today before the world does, right? And the other, the daily reminders is this prayer I start with. I call it a prayer, call it whatever you want. It's not secular. Starting with, may I remember. And it's the idea is like, what do you want to remember about yourself, about the world, about how you want to feel? And mine always is like, starts with, may I remember to breathe. Today, may I not take myself so seriously. May I remember to allow pleasure. May, and it's doing this before the phone, before the email, before all of it. And it's a way to create intentionality. For me, it's a reminder to find levity. That's huge in my life. Life is hard. So anywhere I can find levity and humor, even if I have to create it, I do.
And do you do this, like, do you write this down? Is it in your head? Are you in bed when you do it? Have you made your cup of coffee?
I wrote it down originally and then I use the same one, but then I can add to it. It's your prayer. You do whatever you want. Some days it's like, oh, I need that. And some days, when I was buying my house, I added, may I remember it is safe for me to have financial freedom. So things will happen in your life, like going through a divorce. May I remember I'm not going to die because I'm leaving, so you add to it. It's your prayer. But the way I originally got it is I call it the body prayer, is by getting quiet and placing my hands on a part of my body that I feel called to, or that I feel disconnected from, or self-conscious of, or, I clench my jaw, right? So let's say my hands immediately go there. So then I would write for 5 minutes about what my jaw said. I know it might sound wacky, but as if my jaw was speaking without judgment. And maybe it would be like, you don't, feels like you're carrying the weight of the world. You don't have to grind yourself into nothing. Whatever, right? Whatever the jaw would say, or my belly. Let's say I'm feeling like, oh, I'm disgusting, I'm fat, whatever it is, and I write. It doesn't. And I don't like the words negative and positive. It doesn't have to be positive. You just write truth, but from there, you see what Now, of course, you don't want to go for your prayer. May I remember I'm fat and ugly. Maybe you do, but for me, maybe I would take it like, may I remember the number on the scale has nothing to do with who I am. May I remember to release. May I remember I get to release. Do you see what I'm doing? So I took
I love it.
the things that really my body was telling me and turned it into, what do I need to remember?
there's some
What do I want
gestalt
to remember?
in there. If you're familiar.
Ish. Everything's ish with me. Ish.
Yeah.
But say more.
Well, Gestalt is this kind of therapy where you start to personify parts of you or feelings or I had this experience recently in therapy where I had this pit in my stomach and I just couldn't get this pit out of my stomach. I was so fucking anxious. And my therapist had me basically like close my eyes and see the pit and then give it a sort of character and take the pit out and sit it next to me and then talk to the pit.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It weirdly took away a lot of the feeling, the physiological.
I don't think it's weird.
Yeah, well, I guess not. But I love that you are giving a voice to parts of us that we think are without a voice.
Also, can you hear me? It cut out on your end. But
yeah.
So here's my thought, and I think you'll agree with me. There's very few original ideas. There's so many of us. We're all saying the same thing, but we find our teachers. We find what speaks to us. I didn't like reinvent the wheel. Lydia Yuknovich, who wrote the foreword on Being Human, and I call her my wifey, but her memoir, The Chronology of Water, which Kristen Stewart bought and is directing into a film, is written from the point of view of her body. And we do all this work around the body having a point of view, and it does. And I spent the bulk of my life disconnected from my body because when my dad died, I refused to feel. So I cut off and that turned into an eating disorder. I mean, you name it. So now there's so many times I don't know if I'm feeling pain. Am I feeling hunger? How am I feeling? Because of this profound disconnect. And so the work of my life, if I can call it that, is constantly coming back to being in my body.
I wish that was more people's thing. I mean, I just did a podcast with Vienna Farron, who, again, we were talking about this idea that we spend so much time, especially in our day and age, logically thinking about our why and how our parents messed us up and how everything's interconnected. And we're really good at intellectualizing, but really struggle to feel because it's so hard. I want to move a little bit through your story, which, you are such a beautiful teacher and facilitator of the work of being human. And I have borrowed many, many times your catchphrase, real motherfucking life. And it's a beautiful reminder that is what we are all in every day. I want you to take me back, and then we're going to come to present day, because I'm catching you in a incredibly interesting moment in your life. And I'm grateful that we're getting to sort of encapsulate this here, but I want you to take me back to the relationship in your life. And maybe this is the death of your father, but that really put you on your path to healing and growth, and what ignited this spark for you.
I always, since, like I said, I was born 40, I've always been a very wise old soul. I was like a wise old Jewish woman when I was like 2, but, and I always knew I wanted to connect. I didn't know what that looked like. Like you, I acted. I was like, I'm going to be an actor. But, and then I found writing, I found poetry, but I think the sort of, if you had to like pin it down, was I was working at the newsroom. It was this restaurant in West Hollywood. I worked there for like 14 years, and I was doing a ton of yoga to help with my depression. And because I had all these injuries, because I was an exercise bulimic, I wasn't like a bulimic that vomited, but I would work out. It's humiliating when I think about the books I could have written with the hours that I would exercise, but so I had all these injuries. I started doing yoga, and yoga was like, it saved my life. Mind you, I was miserable. I hated my life. I hated my job. But here's the thing, friends, Never was I like, but what do I want? It was always like, I don't want to be here. I hate my life. But there was never a, well, what do you want, Jennifer? So my friends said, you should become a yoga teacher. And I said, you should eat glass because nothing sounds less unappealing. And I meant it. I did not want to be a yoga teacher, but I went on antidepressants finally in 2008, which I should have done probably when I was at NYU. I would have not dropped out. And they saved my life. Now, I'm aware I saved my life, but I really think they did because about 2 weeks into taking them, all of a sudden I was like, maybe I will take a yoga training. And it wasn't because I wanted to be a yoga teacher. It was because I thought, oh, maybe this will be my escape route. And it was. So I became a yoga teacher, but I started writing again. And I started using social media. At the time, it was Facebook as like this lifeline. And I was writing and I started developing this following. I was also very aggressive at work. I don't know how I didn't get fired, but I had like little business cards, like I'm a yoga teacher. And I got tons of clients and this and that, because for me, it felt like sink or swim. I was like, this is it. This is my shot, So I started writing and developing this following. And then I started telling the truth in my writing, like in a way that I was terrified to. Like, I struggle with depression. I take meds. I had an eating disorder. I drink. I curse. Now, this was at a time, it's very different now. I was a pioneer. Nobody was telling the truth or saying vulnerable things, or especially not yoga teachers. It was very much like, namaste. That's it. And so all of a sudden I was terrified, but it was like this calling, much like the poetry, you gotta do this. So not only did I not get tomatoes thrown at my head and people stopped coming to my classes, by now I'd quit the restaurant, people were coming to me in droves, thanking me. And I was like, wait a minute, all I gotta do is be myself? Now, I'm going to say this. I said this and I'm being human. I'm going to say it again. There's a danger in this because I was being fed off the feedback. I was being fed from like, oh, people are responding. Now that kept me going back then, but it can be very dangerous, right? Because if that's it, then you're screwed. But at the time it was like, wait a minute, people are responding. This is not something to be ashamed of, but wow, this is helpful. And so I started getting more and more courage the more I would do workshops, and eventually the yoga part fell away. I mean, now I have a little bit of body movement, but because it's never what I wanted. And I just got more and more brave, but I kept seeing how when I simply shared who I was, the profound effect it had. It's that simple. But it really started back then when I started writing and combining my yoga with it. And then I was just kind of using yoga as a trick to get people in the room. And then I'm like, hi, have you? Now what are we going to do? But I saw the proof was in the pudding. I saw, wait a minute. This is the secret sauce. Just be yourself. Does that mean everyone's going to love you? No, not everyone loves everyone. We don't love everyone.
I mean, I think
I'd like
there
to.
is.
I mean, maybe we don't like everyone.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course we'd like to walk around being like, everyone's great. I think what's so remarkable about you is that there's a certain, it's almost like Howard Stern back in the day where it was just so shocking to people. And obviously you guys are very different, but
can I have some of his money?
I think there is a level to that. I remember the first time I met you, I met our meeting with my jaw on the floor in some ways, because I was like, holy shit.
What?
Like,
what did I say? Oh my God. Now you're scaring me.
Who knows what you said? No, it wasn't. It was in a remarkable way, in a way that was like, this human being is so honest. And it caught me off guard.
The truth is, it's all about fear. It's about fear. Most of us aren't, because we're afraid. What will they think? What will they think? Who are they?
100%.
I just read a poem about that, where it was always for them. It was always for them, never for me. And I don't even know who they are. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just something I really admire about you. I'm curious, for somebody that is listening to you and is like, wow, like I want to be as brave as Jen, you know, or I want to have the level of, not fucks that Jen has. Where do people start this journey that are struggling with
I mean, I got a
self-love
lot
or
of them. I got a lot of
self-blame?
them at Trader Joe's. Yeah, I got a lot of them at Trader Joe's. Um, some at Walmart. No, I mean, and also I got to clarify, my sweet, beautiful friend. I got a lot of fucks. I care a shit ton. So please, please, people listening, do not think that I'm like, you know, are you kidding? Sometimes it's debilitating, and
Mm,
mainly it's fear, and it's not always of what people will think, but it's like my fear of change was I cannot express this more truthfully. I would have rather died than change. And I've had this apartment 20 years I'm sitting in. I mean, nothing. I will stay, I will stay, I will stay, I will stay, because even if I'm miserable, nothing changes, no one dies. I'm not, you know, that's it. So, you know, I got a lot of fucks. Now, part of it comes from living in the world, from age, from the work I do, from wanting to be who I say I am. So, you know, if I'm leading a workshop where it's about like being vulnerable or telling the truth, and by the way, telling the truth isn't about like, you know, you have to share everything with everyone, or admit your darkest secrets, or walk in a room and immediately tell everyone that you were raped, or no, it is like the truth to you right now. It is to notice where you're hiding, especially pertaining to the fear of what they will think, or the fear of a future that isn't going to happen or hasn't happened yet. Um, so a lot of it came with like, you know what? If I'm doing this, I sure as Shinola am going to be who I say I am. And that's very important to me. Very
mm.
important to me. I mean, so I'd say that's one of the things. May I have the courage to be who I say I am? And I encourage you listening to say that to yourself, then to ask yourself, well, then who am I? And thus begins the exploration. You get to decide, you get to say. So if you're like, well, I'm brave, well, what does that look like for you? Or I'm honest, or I'm kind, or I'm loving, or I'm creative, or I'm someone who could say no, right?
Mm.
So um I just, you know, for me, there is no other way to live. And I'm always intrigued when people go, you're just so yourself. Or no, lately I've gotten all these texts that crack me up. People go, don't let anyone uh, tell you not to be or don't let I'm like, girl, I'm not. What? And also, who else could I be besides me? Literally. Like,
I
what?
love what you just said
Okay.
about looking for the place where people are hiding who they are. Like that to me is it. Like that is the thing, which is
I need to write that down.
checking in and being like, oh shit,
I need
I
to ask
feel
you a serious
myself.
question. Why would I have a pen?
In
Why would I ever have a
2023,
pen?
why would you have a pen? I'll write it down for you. How about that?
No, because I'm a writer. Why would I have a pen? Yeah,
Right.
where are you hiding? I would love that. That's a question I want to ask everyone. Where are you hiding? Where are you hiding? I mean, Erin, I'll ask you. Let's just do it. Let's just like, where are you hiding in your life? And it might be a blind spot, so maybe you have to answer it like this. Where have you hidden if you can't do it in the now?
Oh my God. I mean, I've hidden so many places. I just recently had an experience that was so profound and so confronting. I mean, you know, I've been talking pretty openly about my experience with psychedelics and just how sort of transformative it's been. And again, disclaimer, it's you know, you got to be in the right place with the right facilitators, and you need to be the right person. There's a lot of caveats to this work, but you know, I was
Of course. Same with antidepressants.
Totally. But I started to realize that a lot of my fear in my life came from my lack of self-love. And I had this moment during this recent journey where I heard all of my inner voices yelling at me. And it was during one of the gongs, and all of them
No
were saying, you
way.
know, you're short, you're ugly, you're bald, you know, all of these things. and I just
Oh my
couldn't
God,
hide from it.
I'm going to cry.
And by the end of the song, I went, wait a minute. That's all you got?
Wait,
I'm
by the
short.
end of the what? The gong?
By the end of the song. So they kind of, you have these moments that are kind of attached to different pieces of music. And by the end of this,
I'm uninitiated.
yeah.
What is, when you say, are you talking ayahuasca? Are you talking?
No, this was,
can you say?
This was mushrooms. And,
Okay.
So by the end of this,
I've never done them. I'm curious, but I wanted to know. Yeah.
I mean, they've been some of the most profound moments of my life, but, I got to the end of this thing and I was like, that's it. That's all you got for me, is that I'm short and bald. That's what I'm so scared of. That's the thing that's been fucking me up.
God, I love this.
The very next song was my inner voice telling me how awesome I was. And just high-fiving the shit out of me and being like, you're amazing and you're beautiful and you're smart. And the only reason I could get to that moment was because of the moment I had had right before, where I confronted all of this shit that I had been hiding from. So to answer your question, self-love, there's been a lot around, physical appearance and my insecurity there that I think has held me back and I've hidden from for a long time.
Me too, dude. I mean, look, I'm also short, and I, for whatever reason, decided that made me hideous. Do you know that I wore platforms, Steve Madden platform? I'm talking 6 inches, and weighted tables in them on concrete. I've destroyed my body. I mean, and so when I couldn't anymore. Toward the very end of my waitressing career, I wore sneakers and nobody recognized me. They were like, but all because I did that because I was so ashamed and I thought I was so ugly. Literally destroyed my back. And it's like, wow. But what I want to ask you is, you keep saying song. Is that a terminology, or was it a literal song?
It's the at least the experiences I've had, there are songs. Imagine a playlist of music, and each song, there's amazing research around how sound and music is so interconnected and can manipulate your brainwaves and thoughts.
Absolutely.
But the way I describe it is, oftentimes you have an entire vignette that is attached to the piece of music you're listening to. And as that piece of music ends, you go into another piece of music and have a completely different vignette. It's almost like these mini movies with each song. And the song is like the score of this movie.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, it's been incredibly interesting. And it's funny. I remember I don't know, this must have been last year, the New York Post, somebody sent me an article that said it's officially Short King Spring. And I remember just going, fuck yeah, my day has finally come.
Wait, what did it say?
It said it's officially Short King Spring.
Oh my God, I love it. What about Queen?
Yeah.
I mean, I love this. I love you sharing this. And look, folks listening, again, I'm not over here go on meds. If you are being supervised by a doctor and that's your journey, but nothing that we're saying here is us saying, yeah, go do shrooms or go on meds. It's that's what worked for me. That's what works for Erin. And never do anything without, investigating, researching, medical supervision or supervision. I mean, obviously shrooms aren't with a medical person, but never, I mean, I know I don't need to say this, but never take anything you hear on a podcast or something and just go without any info, just do it. But
totally.
There are so many modalities to heal, to find yourself, to find humor, to find joy, to feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. And more of this stuff will become, less underground and more legal. But just to emphasize this point, I had a mother who I loved dearly, but scared the shit out of me when it came to drugs. And so, I have been terrified to do any of this sort of stuff. So it was a lot of research and thought.
I am
too. But
Yeah.
I love that.
I
love that you asked me that, and what a beautiful question. And if you can be honest with the answer, I think, a lot can come from that. What about you? I mean, right now, well, let's actually back up for a second, because I'm going to ask you this in a moment, but as much as you feel comfortable, like, you're going through a pretty big life change right now. So, I mean, tell folks what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. I didn't know I was going to get this honest. I mean, I always, I'm going to get honest, but I realized something just came up. One thing before I answer that, I wanted to back up with talking about, I don't know if you heard me when I said, what's one area where you're hiding? And if you can identify it, where you've hidden. I want to say that because I think, and I want to talk about this in my new book, I think a lot of things are blind spots. And so we freeze up. It's like, I don't know where I'm hiding. It's a blind spot. But we can go, well, where have I hidden? Eventually, hopefully it'll show up. But so many things, like, we can't even see, This is pretty intense. So you asked me, where am I hiding? Is that what the question was?
Yeah. Or what's going on for you right now in your life?
All right. I wasn't going to share this, but I am.
Well, then don't share. This can be just you.
No, I want to. Stop it. Okay. I want to. It's like, I'm always telling people, like, I'm a notorious over tipper, and people are like, I can't take it. And I'll go, someone offers you money, you take it. I mean, obviously, unless it's for like an illegal drug deal or something, but anyway, so I created something called Shame Loss. And I'm actually going to launch my own podcast. And I might ask Liana, she's genius, but like ideas for titles, but I think Shame Loss is it. But I'm dealing with a lot of shame right now for many, 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 many reasons. I mean, one is, like, I haven't been writing. I mean, I feel like I have nothing to show for all these months. I took a hiatus. I took time off, felt, mind. I took time off and nothing. I've had no income since, I'm like, what the frick have I done? Nothing. Okay, I'm not dead. There's that. But like, I feel like there's nothing to show for it. And I sold this book in September, and I'm, so there's a lot of shame, and like, I'm a writer who's not writing. But bigger than that, I mean, there's also my default self, like I mentioned earlier, of telling my dad, saying, you're being bad, and then I said, I hate you, and he died. I decided I'm a bad person. So leaving my marriage brought up every possible feelings, like I'm a monster, and I'm doing better. But many months ago, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating. It was like, I'm a monster. I mean, it was like I couldn't not feel that, see that, believe that. But what's happening right now, and I'm doing my best to work through it, even though I really don't like the idea of work. I got to think of a new phrase, but so I'm in this very tumultuous time. It's very amicable, and right now my ex and I are flip-flopping the house and the apartment, and my son's thriving, but we haven't yet gotten into the hard part, maybe with like settlement and all. But I have a tendency, and this is the first time anyone's going to hear this, so this is a big share. If you've ever had anything like anorexia or alcoholism, or I'm trying to think what else besides anorexia, but anger issues, I don't know. It's always right there. It's like never goes away, right? So it's right there. And so a synapse, a thing I used to do because I never wanted to feel, was instead of dealing what was going on immediately, I'd be like, I'm fat, oh my God. And I would just focus on my body and like, it consumed me to the point where like I got nothing done. It's all I thought about, like an alien crawled in me, like I was possessed. So it's the path of least resistance. So it's an old synapse. Path of least resistance is for my brain to go, lose weight, or, instead of going, what's really going on? So I've been slipping. I've not been doing that well. I've been in a like old stuff is coming up, and I feel a lot of shame around it because I wrote a fucking best-selling book and I do all this work, and it's like, how can I be here again? And
Mm.
the stuff with the body, I'm a big fan, and I hope everybody hears this. I'm a big fan of not commenting on bodies. You could say, you look beautiful, you are beautiful, you look brilliant, but like, you've lost weight. And so it's really hard. Everyone's like, oh my God, you look amazing. Oh my God. And here I am, like, I feel like I want to die. I'm not eating. And everyone's like, how amazing you look. Now, as much work as I've done, it's almost impossible not for me, it has been to let that affect me. And I try and I try, and I still am like, God, go away, those voices. And it's been hard. I've slipped in a lot of ways into self-medicating. I'm drinking too much. Last night I didn't. I'm so proud of myself. I woke up yesterday morning and I was like, what are you doing, Jen? And I'm clear on it. It's not denial. I know I am, it's like, and so last night I was going to pour a drink and I was like, I was by myself. I was watching Unprisoned on Hulu. I made food and I was like, what do you really want? What are you looking for? And I didn't. And I was like, yes. And I woke up today and I felt great. And I thought, all right, okay. But like self-medicating, falling back into, instead of dealing with what is so, being like, I'll just lose weight, or how can, not even lose weight, how can I stay? Everyone's saying how good I look and I feel good, and how can I stay? How can I stay? And it's so unhealthy. And so there's all this shame, like, because I know better. My intellectual, I know
Mm.
better. You know? It's it's incredible. And that's why one of my big things with this new book is about daily practices, because I think, you could be like, oh, I kicked shame out of bed. I kicked fear out of bed. And then you wake up one day and it's there in bed with you again.
Right.
So it's a daily, like, nope, I don't need you today. Not today, Satan. Not today, Satan.
I
But then
mean,
it's
I
like, well,
think,
now what? Like, that's what I ended up. Yeah.
no, sorry, go ahead.
No, I ended on being human with the words, now what? And my new book is a response to that. But the now what for me, it's like, this is why talk therapy, it's wonderful, but it's not the end all be all. I'm a big now whatter. So it's like, okay, now what? So if I say, oh, I can't I can't just like, instead of dealing with what is so, focus on my body, like, well, then now what? Now what?
But can I ask you something? First of all, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, that is so vulnerable. And, the thing about being a public person is like, how much do you want things to be just for you versus how much are you sharing them for other people? And where does the line get drawn there? But I have a question about the so now what? Because I hear that and my response is like, nothing. Like, why does there
Great.
always need
That's a
to
now
be
what?
but do you ever feel like
I
sometimes
love that you said this.
this perpetuates this need to constantly be moving and doing, and it doesn't pay enough homage to the being still?
What's really interesting, if I may say, because I think you and I are like family, that's your lens. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong. But my feeling is you're someone that's always moving and doing. So that's why
Totally.
you're interpreting it that way. Am I right
Yeah,
or wrong?
yeah, 100%.
I rarely, yeah. So that I love that you asked that. The now what doesn't have to be a do. It's simply, maybe it's just like, now what is, okay, today I won't call myself a disgusting monster. Today I'll look honestly. I mean, now what maybe is nothing. Today, now what, I'll lay in bed. It doesn't have to be an actual, but what it is looking at it. It's not just like talking about it, and if we want to create a shift, then what? I mean, and then now what could be
I
nothing,
see.
especially for you, especially for you.
Right.
But it's looking honestly at it.
Yeah. No, I just,
You know what, Jen? Do you want to continue? Yeah.
No, I was going to say that's such a great pickup on your end to say about me and my lens and the way that I just interpreted what the so now what versus the way you experienced that. I think that's a great call out.
It is, because I see you. Like, game recognizes game. Now, I'm not as, I mean, I don't know if you have ADD. I mean, I'm not going to diagnose you, but mine is like, I tend to, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what's worse, my depression or anxiety, because depression flattens me, but I can create. Anxiety makes me almost manic. Like I pace, I go in the mirror, I pick my face, anxiety is more debilitating. My constantly moving is more my brain. Do you know what I mean? Because I tend to be the one that's like on the sofa and I can't not get up. But like this never shuts off, and I don't sleep and I grind all night. I mean, maybe the now what is like, I mean, it could be, okay, now what is putting the phone in the other room? Why? Because I'm not doom scrolling before I go to bed. I'm not looking at, whatever. I mean, it could be the most subtle thing. It could be nothing, but it's simply to say, here's an example. If I don't want to continue this, if I don't want to continue self-medicating, if I want to be able to be with what is happening rather than avoid it, now what?
Yeah. I mean, I'm rehearing it in a different way now, which is
That's great.
Which is interesting. I want to ask you something because, here you are, this human being who has written this best-selling book on being a human and what that means. And you've cultivated this audience, this following. I hate the word following. I hate the word audience too. I don't know what you call
Me
it.
Too. But this group it's like, I'm Moses.
Right. This group of people who I think really look to you. And there is a perception in the self-help, thought leadership, personal growth space that a lot of these figures should be figures that people are trying to be more like, or whose life they look at and go, I want that life, right? Like there's a lot of that in this space.
Okay, first of all, that's weird. First of all, that's fucking weird. Everybody hear me now. Stop it. If you're looking at someone's life, like whenever someone goes, I want your life, it's like, you know what? Take a seat, take several seats. Stop that. But I will say this. I surround myself, Aaron Albert, with people I want to be like, meaning like my friends who are very generous or honest or tell the truth. Yes. I don't want to be them. I want to be like them. So if someone wants to be like me, meaning tell the truth and like share their shitty apartment, even though they're perceived as very successful. Yes, by all means. But the minute someone's like, I want to be you, that's some scary shit.
Yeah. And I don't mean, I don't mean the scary version of that. I'm talking about what you're talking about, which is I think there's an aspirational quality to the way that a lot of the public facing therapists, coaches, thought leaders live their life. Right. And there's a way that, that's how I met Mark. I looked at Mark and I was going through something, and here was this person who had been through what I had been through and come out on the other side way better. And I said, fuck, if he can do it, I can do it. And I want to know how he did it. Right. And so I think there's a lot of that in this space.
And there ain't nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful. That's how I find the people in my life. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It goes back to my quote. May I have the courage to be who I say I am. That means if I see that people are, and I can't control, and I'm not going to like lie, like I just confess some really big shit. But if I know that about myself, I want to be who I say I am. And all that means for me is I tell the truth, is I don't hide in shame. That's it.
Totally. What this was all leading up to is, what do you want to leave people with in this moment, as people are watching you in this moment where you're navigating divorce, your life is changing, there are old patterns that are rearing their head. You've done all of this work, and yet these things still exist. You speak about this to people. You help people navigate through this work. And here you are in this moment where you are returning to things that maybe you thought you had worked through. What do you want to leave people with? What is the lesson here? And maybe you don't know yet.
I didn't know No, I know. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I do. And it was going to be the title of my book, but we switched it. But it's you get to have this. And this can be anything. This is a story from my new book, but after I bought my house, which against all odds, and that's another magical story that involves Gay Hendricks, but I bought my house, I didn't have money. Don't ask how, but I got it. And it completely magic. And after a few months of being there, I was outside by the hammock and I was so happy. And this inner voice, like Erin's inner voice, came in and it was like, you don't get to be happy. And I go, I know, because the other shoe is always going to drop, But I stood up, and this is true, friends. I stood up and I go, oh, hell no, motherfucker. I curse a lot. And I got a sticky note and I wrote, I get to have this. And then I wrote it again and again, and I stuck it all over my office. I've never had an office. And every day I looked at it. So it's not about I get to have this, the house, that's part of it. But it's I get to have this, meaning happiness. I never thought I got to be happy. I felt so guilty. I thought I killed my father. Who am I to be happy? I'm a bad person. I don't get to be happy. I don't get to have big love. I don't get to ever have financial freedom. I get to have this. Now, it doesn't mean, if you're listening and you're like, yeah, but I work 7 jobs and I don't, it's not about the material stuff. It's about the belief that you're worthy, that you get to have this. This can be anything. And if you cannot identify what your this is, I challenge you, I invite you to ask you, what does your inner asshole say you do not get to have? Erin, what does your inner asshole say you do not get to have? Rest?
What does my inner asshole say I do not get to have? Honestly, I think success. Like I've never
there we
had
go. You get to have
stability. This. Sorry.
Okay, and then I'm going to go deeper. Now life coach Jen is coming on. So what I would do if I was coaching you, which I'm not whatever, I'm a human who happens to be good with listening and can hear blind spots. What I then go is, what is success to you? And then we'd keep digging and digging, because the way I define success is I go, I told the truth today. Financial, fine, part of it, but and then stability, same thing. So we're not going to go into that now, but it's to get you to keep going deeper. Is like, what does that really mean when I get to have this? Well, success. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's like, whatever, money, you can make a shit ton of money if you want, like money can rain on you. It's not that. That's not what you're talking about. So don't you like how I just told him what he's thinking? If that's not what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I know. But friends, I get to have this. Like, I never thought I got to, in every area of my life, was great. And my husband, my soon to be ex, is wonderful. He really is. He's a great dad and we're friends, but I wasn't happy. And I did not think I got to leave. I just didn't think I got to. I never thought I got to have, I would see couples laughing. I never thought I got to have that. So, You get to have this. And so I invite you to ponder, to write that down and to ponder, what is my this? And if you can't come up with it, I want you to think about the things you think you don't get to have.
Mm,
And
that
really
is,
invite them in. Invite them in. I get to have this. And look, I don't think anyone's happy all the time. For me, when I say I get to be happy, what I really think of happiness is freedom. Like, because happiness is fleeting. It's like, I'm talking about a meaningful life. I'm talking about
yeah.
feeling free.
I think that is beautiful and so scary for people to say to themselves, I get to have this, right? Because it means accepting so many things that might be hard to accept about you, about your life. It's a beautiful
And do you know what
invitation.
else? Do you know what else I think we have to really get over? I need everyone to hear me. It's not about, I get to have this and you don't. I think there's a weird feeling. It's like when and on Being Human in my workshops, I say, give yourself a fucking medal. And it's not about being better than anyone else. It's not, Aaron gets to have this and you don't. Take everyone else out of the equation. No, you're generous, you're loving, and I got you for them. But I get to have this is about you. So please take away the guilt. Like, who am I to say I get to have this when this person doesn't? I get to have this. I get to have moments of my day without feeling guilty. I get to have ease. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean life will always be easy, but I get to have ease. Life doesn't have to be hard. Doesn't have to be by design. It will be sometimes.
So good. Jen, I'm excited for you
And
because
I want to go back to one quick thing that you said about being a public figure, and we decide what we want to share and this and that. And you're absolutely right. A couple things happened though. I realized, especially because I wrote a book and I talk about anorexia and all this, like I was posting photos and people could tell I was a lot thinner and stuff. So there's that, right? There's that. And I much appreciated people who weren't like, you look beautiful. I much appreciate this. Is everything okay? Are you okay? Because that's another way to say, I love you, I care about you, without commenting. And I knew what they meant, right? But so there was that. There was like, I wasn't sharing what was going on, but people could see. They're like, something's up. The other thing was, I am a public figure. That sounds very douchey, but let's be honest. I whore myself out on the internet. People know my face and my voice, but I would get seen around, and like I'm seeing someone. And so there was this thought of like, if I want to be who I say I am, it's not anyone's business. I don't owe it to anyone, but I very much would prefer, for my own integrity, for people to know I'm divorced. I'm, then thinking and that mattered to me. And you could judge that. I don't care, but that mattered to me because I am a public figure, and I kept seeing people I knew, and I thought, let me, and the other thing was, I was very clear, and I'm very proud. I set this boundary. I wrote this post and I said in my newsletter on Instagram, and you could get in my newsletter at jenniferpastiloff.com, but I said, please do not tell me how hard it's going to be. I think everybody who's gone through a divorce, God bless them, wants to put their story on you, or what they perceive through movies or media. Everyone's like, it's going to be so hard. And I'm like, la, 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 I'm not listening. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard, but let me have my experience. Robert and I are, if you want to call it, conscious uncoupling. And then also, to not ask me questions and details, and to respect it. But the main thing was, let me have my experience. And I stayed committed to that. And my son is thriving. And that is because I did not listen to all the external voices of how hard it was going to be, of how to do it, of what I was doing wrong, and all the things.
I love
and I
that
shared
so
that
much.
because I do think it's inspiring. I think if one person hears it and takes that on, great.
I mean, I think this is, it makes me think of two things. One is that, we live in a world where we have access to information about everything, which can be really helpful.
I know, it's so weird.
And it can also heavily bias us. It can limit our creativity. It can, and although it seems weird that divorce would be an opportunity for creativity, I think you can find beauty and art in all of these things. And I think by you saying, hey, let me have my own experience, it allows for you, and your ex-partner to have creativity in the way you want to do this, and to do it in a way that's unique to you and
I'm like thriving creatively. I want to say one more thing about the like the constant access of information. So I alluded, man, I hope you share this one first, because I am sharing some major shit here, but I alluded to this. I didn't say what it said, but now I have been going, I did not share publicly what I was going through for quite some time, but I was already, in the divorce, all these things. It was no one's business. I didn't share it until I did. But I got a letter in the mailed to my home. Do you understand how violating this is? Anonymously, mailed to my home. Now, by the way, Google any one of us. It's very rare our addresses don't come up. It's alarming to me. But anyway, I got a letter mailed anonymously, and no return address, just mailed from Los Angeles. And it looked like a ransom note. And in quotes at the top, I have not told anyone publicly what it said. It was so upsetting. I threw up. In quotes at the top, it used my own quote that said, "May I have the courage to be who I say I am." And then it had like gaslighting versus honesty, cheating versus, and it had all these things. Like, obviously this person was calling me out, like, "Oh, may you have the courage to be who and saying all these things. And then it was like, "Be who you say you are today forward." And I thought, so the thing is like, I didn't share publicly, so no one knew I was already in divorce and all this stuff. Like, I am being who I say I am, but the violation, to get a letter, it was so upsetting. And again, it's like, I'm a public figure. Like, who is this person that thinks they get a say in my life? Not only that, they research and there's so much there.
These people, these people are not well who do things like this. I hate to generalize like that, but that is not a well thing to do, right? Like that. And this is the problem too with where we're at as a society and social media and all the access we have, which is there's like a dehumanizing that has happened because of the way we feel connected to, we feel indebted by,
entitled,
yeah, to these people who make their lives public. And some is for good, some can be for ego. I'm not saying like, everybody who's public, is an amazing human, but it's so wild to see how people get so entangled in other people's lives that they feel that they have a right or responsibility to hold these public people accountable. I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. And also you got to know that this sounds so reductive, and maybe uncouth for like a mental health person to say, but someone sending that is not well.
I'm okay now. I think there was so much, like, first of all, being sent to your home. It's so violating. And then the lack of balls to not put their name, and it's that feeling of like looking over your shoulder. There was just a lot there. And also, what else it is? I don't know if you've ever been falsely accused of something. It's the worst feeling in the world. That's what it is. It's like, you don't know, and then, but it brought up all the things you're saying, like, wow, these people feel entitled, this happened a while ago now, but I just thought it was so interesting, alarming, and indicative of you're right, of our culture.
Yeah. If I'm to, if I'm to try to be positive and reframe it in closing here, you know, maybe there's an element of like, oh, it's cool that people care so much about you and your work.
Whatever. Nice try.
Right. But it's like, I can't even do it. Jen, I love you so much. You truly are a Jewish sister from another Mr., Mrs., whoever it is. And I'm just so always in awe of your vulnerability. And I mean, it's what makes you so incredible and how real and honest you are. And I'm excited for you. I know how when I
finally get I finally get bat mitzvahed, I'm going to invite you. please do. I will be the first one on the dance floor, last one off. And what I was going to say is I know how poignant, and I keep using this word in every fucking episode, but fertile, these moments of change, big, significant change are. And so, I'm really excited for what's going to come from this for you. Thank you for being here. Where can people find you? Thank you. They can find me at just Google, apparently. Just kidding. Jennifer Pastiloff. Don't you dare, motherfuckers. JenniferPastiloff.com is my website. You could sign up for my newsletter. And then Instagram is where I, waste most of my time instead of writing, Jen Pastiloff. And you can find me on Felt, formerly known as Mind. I have a writing workshop coming up in May called Allow. And if money is an issue, you reach out for me. And I have in-person retreats in Ojai, California in May, upstate New York at Omega the last weekend of July, and Italia in September. So email me, Jennifer@jenniferpastiloff.com.
Beautiful. Go out, buy and read Jen's book on being human. It's amazing. I love you. Thank you for being here.
Do it.
Shabbat shalom.
I love you.
It is technically Shabbat.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
And
go
we'll see
get
you next
your
week.
kippah.